Let's talk about my version of silent burnout, which simply put is just an invisible inner depletion of the best internal energy that has me feel good, which would be this inner fire, this passion, this excitement, and this inspiration and motivation to be me and to do things that are an external manifestation of my soul and my spirit and my principles, my values of what I believe for myself and my purpose in life. When that isn't present or is slowly disappearing, this is really silent burnout of the inner flame of life and my life source energy. And it really is burning out, dimming, being extinguished slowly. And without that, I'm just an empty shell of myself, and there's nothing inside. And this is what I battled with ever since I was a child, of this deep dark emptiness inside of me. And also as a seeker and an old soul, I was always thinking to myself, wait, there's got to be more. Something's not right. Why do I feel like nothing inside, empty, or not happy? These are the words I was saying to myself, is as I'm not happy, but I should be happy because everything on the outside looks good on paper. There's nothing dramatic going on. But why do I still feel this void of emptiness? And almost now I can say it was definitely a lack of a sense of myself, of who I am, why I am, what am I doing here on earth? Does it all make sense? Does it feel good? Does it resonate? None of that was present. But again, the only thing I could think of early on was to do everything in my power to be perfect on the outside, thinking falsely, of course, but I didn't know it at the time. Is I was thinking if I could be perfect on the outside, then I would feel good on the inside. And then that was the start of me actually kicking into high gear to become a perfectionist overachiever at the ripe old age of 6 years old, thinking that I would feel better. So, really, in a way, not only was I silently burned out, I actually had no inner flame to ignite. Like there was nothing there to even start a little kindling of a little fire of good feelings inside of me. So now, silent burnout also has so many different symptoms and signs and signals that we don't pay attention to. And so this is especially in highly ambitious, driven, high functioning achiever types. Especially, I want to say entrepreneurs or people in business, because there's a whole element of the money component, but I won't get into that today. But we're talking about um, this silent burnout, the inner depletion, but we're not even recognizing it, hence the silence. We're not even talking about it, hence the silence. We're not even acknowledging it, because simply what I have done, and most every other high achiever does, is that we feel a little sense of uneasiness or discomfort and this is me through and through, is that I didn't stop to even try to figure it out, feel it, uh, but I would just cover it up with, guess what? Another achievement, another goal, another intention, another thing to do. Driven, all being driven by, okay, well, this doesn't feel like enough. That's as far as I got. This doesn't feel enough, so let me go and do something more, to feel enough, to feel better, right? And I kind of kept doing that over and over, and it just got worse and worse over time, and yet still I had no idea that I was running this pattern that started very early on in childhood, and I was stuck in a trap and a matrix, and had no idea. And it just seemed to work. Why? Because I was constantly in a cycle of a dopamine junkie, like addict, of the feel good. The dopamine creates the drive and ambition, and then achieving the goal, right, is like the automatic high. So that was my first drug of choice. Accomplish something, try out for a team, make the team, win the race, get the boyfriend, um, do the next thing, get something, but it was always achievement, you know, oriented. It was, oh, get the next A, get the next grade, get the next outfit, get the next, the latest shoes, like get the next thing that would make me temporarily feel good about myself. But because it was so external, and which went against any internal feelings, it never stuck. It never penetrated. It never internalized in me because it couldn't, because it was fake. It was false. It was artificial. It was superficial. And I kept going and going and going. And yet, as I kept accomplishing more, get the new job, get the new career, try the entrepreneurial thing, get the next achievement accomplished, get the next job, make more money, you know, go into real estate, get, the respect, like constant over and over, all the while never understanding that without it internalizing, without my brain and mind computing the information and creating new neuronal patterns, it never stuck. It never made sense. It's like uh, putting, what they say, putting whipped cream on a cow pie, on a poop pie, is that you just keep covering it up with something good, but underneath it's crap. and and that cycle kept going until it didn't, until it stopped working. And boy, oh boy, did I need the biggest, worst wake up call from my perspective ever. And that was my sister dying. And that it was a blessing in disguise looking backwards in hindsight. But at the time, it was about the only thing that would stop me to even wake up, in order to really understand this, which thank goodness it happened, because it's the only thing, understanding what was really going on unconsciously, subconsciously, and consciously, based on psychology and neurology. It was the only thing that made the difference, that worked, that solved the problem. And of course, it took a lot of time and energy and discomfort and confrontation and self-examination, self-evaluation, self-assessment over and over and over again, taking self-responsibility, holding myself accountable, and respecting every single person in my life holding me accountable. But it was only the highest level mentor type people or coaches or leaders actually that helped me in self-development, but held me accountable where I had no other choice but to face myself, and doing it over and over again, but making sense of it all was the direct access to the panacea, to actually finally feeling internally connected to this higher sense of self, my inner truth, of who I am, why I am. And then it turned into this unconditional self love, turning into unconditional self worth, which really means being in love with myself, respecting myself, liking myself for who I am, but especially for my flaws, my insecurities, my inferiorities, if you will, for who I'm not. So being unconditionally accepting and validating for who I am and for who I'm not, for my shortcomings, for my weaknesses, for my failures. Uh, that's what made the difference. That's what absolutely transformed my life, like on healthy steroids, like catapulted me in so many new ways. But really the bottom line was it and started to fill that cup of emptiness inside, of the void, and it all started to make sense. And the more I understood it, the better I felt, over and over and over again. So then the inner cup was actually truly, authentically, really actually feeling full internally. And as it that my inner cup kept filling up, it started to run overeth. So then it was so much easier then to give, because I tried so many times to give with nothing, with an empty cup. How can you give something you don't have? And then you try and give and you can power through it, you can force it, but it's so not sustainable. It's so unsustainable that it's way more detrimental, and it is riskier because it ends up robbing us of more internally. So it's worse, not better. So being able to really integrate all of this, to understand it, where it just resonated in my body, and it was like, oh wait, this makes sense. So mind, body, soul, spirit, it all started to connect and become more seamless. And then it produced this energy of fulfillment, this energy of meaningfulness and joy, and this energy of happiness and love. So I guess what I'm really saying is this silent burnout situation has so many other symptoms that can show up differently, in for different people. It could show up as anxiety, depression, mania, like over the top, go, 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 in a manic state, so to speak. And it can show up as, well, symptomatically poor sleep patterns, right? Poor relationships, not communicating, not really taking quality time with the people that matter most. It will also show up trying to overcompensate to do more, because really what's happening is internally we're feeling worse. We have internal conflict, and we have a situation where our inner energy is non existent. It's going away, it's disappearing. It's harder and harder to generate, it's harder and harder to feel internally good. And that to me is the silent burnout syndrome. But it shows up in different ways for different people, and it's usually going to be something more on the negative side, where it doesn't feel right, or something's off, or you're irritated, frustrated, angry, resentful. Oh, that's a big one. it's not even blatant anger, right? It's actually sucking it up, keeping it inside, and it's actually becoming this subconscious to unconscious resentment building and building and building. And you'll feel it in your body. Shallow breathing, you'll feel it intense. And this is then for high achievers and high performers, this is then an injury. So now it shows up blatantly in your body, disease, dis-ease in the body. And so this is when the injuries happen and we sabotage ourselves. And we still don't realize it was an internal silent burnout. And so what we'll actually get, especially high performers, athletes, dancers, we'll get equestrians like myself, we'll get an injury and we'll focus on, oh, I got an injury, not really knowing that the source and root cause of that injury was something unconscious to us. So I do believe the body is the unconscious, meaning whatever's happening and not happening unconsciously, if it's not addressed and it's not looked for and made conscious, what ends up happening is it will show up in the body. So Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about the body being the unconscious. I already knew this, but when I heard that from him, I was like, oh, aha, that's what makes sense. And it just solidified my already uh, keen intuition on what really causes us to have physical ailments is something unconsciously happening mentally and emotionally, and then manifests itself into something external. Like the body is the best signal. And through my self development learning, I've put it all together where when something happens in the body, we can reverse engineer it and look for something that's unconscious that created this cycle of self-sabotage, hence the ailment, the suffering, the injury. And as I tracked it and made sense of it, another great resource, Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life, when I started just experimenting with my own life and of course my clients and using this as a template to understand it, it would track like clockwork. And how it really tracked and made sense was it resonated. It's a sense of, it doesn't matter if it's fact or fiction, because pretty much everything is subjective. But when we go, oh my God, that makes sense. Oh, that that makes me feel a sense of, wow, aha, interesting. I see that. It's like your body and your brain and your body are picking up the vibrational frequency of energy, of cohesiveness, of understanding. And it just feels like, oh wow, that's how we gauge it. I actually believe is it feels good and it resonates. It creates this calm sense of energy. But how are you going to feel that if you never sit still long enough to allow yourself to feel, oh, that makes sense. Oh, that feels good, which is, I think, the one of the worst problems for human beings. It's one of those human conditions that is just so counterintuitive. It's like, wait a minute. Again, talking about uh, automatically when we're born, we're raised as human doers, not human beers. And so, in other words, we just keep going, going, going to survive. And who has time to sit still and feel when we're constantly in fight flight mode, in fear of death, and in fear of not having food, shelter, clothing? There's no time to feel. And so we get completely trapped and sidetracked from the very thing, those feelings, allowing them to integrate to create a cycle of neuronal patterning that includes the feelings of goodness of happiness, of joy, and fulfillment. All right, so silent burnout was something I suffered without even knowing it because I had no idea I was even burned out. And because it was silent, I never even said the word burnout. That's why I'm going deep into really understanding this and researching it currently, because in my own experience, um, I heard this and I think it's so great, is my brain was trained early on to mistake stillness, taking the time to feel, for instance, mistaking stillness for stagnation. I got that from someone. I am sorry, I forget who, but that's been my problem, especially as a recovering overachiever, right? Using achievements and accomplishments to define my worth, that I matter, that I'm significant, that I'm good enough, right? So stillness for an overachiever just doesn't work. So I thought, again, counterintuitive, I was wrong. But my brain still registers stillness for stagnation, lack of progress and momentum. And as a recovering overachiever, it creates, if I don't have progress constantly, then the next thing that's going to happen is I'm going to think, oh no, no progress, no worthiness, no validation that I'm good enough because I have nothing to show for it. I'm not achieving enough. So no time to stay in stagnation. So this is where it gets really tricky, is that we get caught then in the trap of needing to feel good with instant gratification by achieving, instead of taking the time to understand the counter intuition is where achievement is the drug. And then if we can let go of forcing the need to create something superficially or artificially to validate ourselves, then we can start to learn how to validate ourselves with no achievement. Okay, let me say that again, right? No achievement, and still feel unconditionally worthy, good enough, that I matter. That was the big, oh my God, counterintuitive, like aha, like dot connect. Because here's the reason why I had to be open to accepting that, even though it was very ethereal and like, whoa, what does that even mean? Is the one thing I drew on is the way I had been living my life, achieving, instant gratification in every area of my life to some degree or another, wasn't sustainable, didn't work, especially when the chips were down and there was a very critical, traumatic occurrence in my life. It did not work. As a matter of fact, it was the very thing that almost killed me, right? Dying by suicide. So that's a problem, clearly. And when I realized how I've been living my life backwards by doing in order to have the next thing in the material world, so then I would be happy, and then I would be joyful, and then I would be successful. I had it all wrong because none of it worked. And then understanding that in the stillness, seeing that stillness is a time for self reflection and self evolution and self mastery to understand what's truly going on, I was able to reverse engineer the do in order to have, in order to be, into being first, being happy in the moment with no achievement, no progress, no momentum, no inspiration. Whoa. Yes, is understanding how to create that, which only made doing more effortless, easier, simpler. it didn't feel like a drain and a grind and a hustle, which only then created the results of having the actual results, the tangible results. And I saw this over and over because the truth is I had been creating so many different things in my life this way, in the beingness, and then whatever I was doing felt easy, light and bright, like I was in flow or like floating through, really. And then I kept accomplishing one goal after another. So that's how I knew it was real, because if I look backwards at my life, a lot of what I created in the material world, real estate, right? My ranch, there was tangible goods here, that I was creating by being optimistic and happy and grateful, but I didn't know it at the time. So there are many things in my life where who I was being created the best results with the least amount of effort, but then that got lost. That most people don't even have it, I believe. But then it got lost with the death of my sister and then my attempting my own suicide, right? Because of the grief. So I lost that ability, but it wasn't working anyway in the long run. So it ended up being better than I could ever imagine to really understand this concept and then to proactively implement the being to the doing to the having, as opposed to the doing to the having to the being. And so the reason I want to stay with this silent burnout thing is because I believe in my own life there's so much to it, but it's one of those things that high achievers deal with, suffer from over and over again. And it's because I can relate to it so well through my own experiences that if I could help the next person understand it. I mean, silent burnout is everywhere. You don't have to be a high achiever. You could be a medium achiever, a low achiever, and then that's all subjective. Yes. And I'm really talking about people who have this this drive and ambition. And it could go both ways. You could have this drive and ambition, to be a criminal, which exists, or you can have drive and ambition to be, a healer or, a doctor, like someone who helps. Criminals, right. I don't want to, and I'm not in any way disrespecting anyone here, but it's just this drive and ambition, and any which way we dice it up, when we want to go, 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 do, have, da, 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 we lose something internally. We lose something that is our sense of self. That's what I firmly believe. And so silent burnout to me right now is really important because it's so insidious and it's not talked about. So already in my research, many high achievers or go-getters are not sitting still. And then they're not discussing or talking about it. And when they are talking about it, they're just repeating the same thing, but they're not actually addressing it as a solvable situation, as a problem that has answers and solutions, that it actually could go away. So that's what I'm finding in my research, is that people are just powering through, and then it's like a double-edged sword. It's a curse. High achievers won't stop. They keep achieving, which drives their achievement, but at what cost? At what expense? At the cost of themselves, their soul, their spirit, their life source energy, their inner fire. That's the cost. And so then you're just an empty shell, doing, feeling emptier and emptier along the way. Oh my gosh, I get so excited like talking about the different things. I got to stay on point here, but I'm just really talking about the the reason why I really want to address is silent burnout, something that is very prevalent that I do feel I have solutions for and could help other people. First of all, by just talking about it and having people think, oh, that's interesting. And then being curious about it. That's the first step. So, in terms of burnout, silent burnout, I'm really just introducing my take on it to have people go, huh, that's interesting. And again, welcome to the power of self evolution. Consciousness evolution is elevating consciousness, starting to learn things or know things that we didn't know or barely knew, is what starts to make the transformational difference that I live by, practice, and teach by. Is that when it comes to silent burnout, the first step is when you're feeling drained, exhausted, decision fatigue, irritable, anxious, lacking sleep, not feeling good in your body, not having energy. First thing is to call out the burnout and say, maybe that's what it is. My inner fire, my inner flame is being extinguished by things outside of myself, by my relationships, by my life, by my job, by my career, by my bills, by my money, by my, you know, uh, by my obligations and responsibilities in life. The first thing you want to do is call it out. Stop. Understand and reframe stillness as a way to start to reignite the inner flame and to say, hey, wait a minute, I think I'm burned out and I need to stop and not resist it, because what we resist persists. So take silent burnout, like, oh, wow, those symptoms, those signals, they all register with me. Like, oh, that makes sense. Is go, maybe I'm burned out. And then go, wait a minute. Step one, call it out. Take it from silence right into loudness, if you will, and say, yeah, you know what? I feel burned out. I'm not going to resist it. I'm going to allow myself to feel this way because I'm amazing and I do a lot and I have a lot of goals and I'm highly ambitious, but I'm human and I need to take a step back to work with this. So if you could take away anything from this podcast is let's go from the recognition of possible silent burnout into audible, loud burnout, but I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm not feeling connected, I feel disconnected, I don't feel supported in life, I feel burned out, and it's all okay. So the minute you do that, you disengage the fear mechanism to stay on high alert for fight, flight. Fight, flight. We must let the fear mechanism, the amygdala, and the part of the brain that's responsible for survival, fight, flight, we need to disengage it. We need to help switch off that survival mechanism and let our nervous system calm down, let our mind calm down, let the brain stop being on like hypervigilance, protection, safety mode. So that then allows your body to relax and it frees up your capacity to think clearer, to accept stillness as a, a happy place, stillness as a point to retreat into deeper knowing and understanding for yourself that ultimately is going to make sense and have you feel better and just sitting still and deep breathing and relaxing. It's a sense of relief. And then you can start to think, oh, okay, this is all okay. There's nothing wrong here. I'm human. I I have every right to feel depleted, to feel this way. And now it's counterintuitive. The way to fill that inner cup, right, to get rid of the depletion is to sit still and give back to yourself by reframing the situation and seeing the stillness as actually a rest, an a time for retreat, re-evaluation, reinvigoration, revitalization of self, to come back to your center, to your groundedness, and know it's all okay. So this is where you next want to, in this moment, look for what is working and reframing what you were misperceiving as something wrong, and looking for what's actually working and what is right, what is on track. Yes. And this is what I do for myself, and what absolutely helps to get from that inner internal conflict state to a calm, grounded, reassured state, and knowing everything's okay. So this is exactly what I do for myself. I'm just giving you the quick steps to help you through it, that would help you go from, feeling a lack of energy, that life source energy I talk about, into recharging, to bring you back to center, to calmness, to filling that internal cup to actually keep going. But you want to go from the cup being full and running over it, as opposed to trying to run on empty, running on emptiness, which again is even more detrimental to everyone and everything, to your health and wellness, to your mind and your mental health and your mental wealth, right? It's more detrimental, is that sitting still to refuel, to re-energize, to reaffirm, to acknowledge and praise yourself, and to really look at for a moment how far you've come, how much you do, how much is working in your life. There are always going to be setbacks, challenges, obstacles. But the more you feel confident and courageous and self-respect and self-worth, the more inner fuel you have to be able to navigate through the circumstances with the most of amount of ease and grace and humbleness, humility and patience and compassion, which only has you feel you can do more, but not from a depleted state, but from a place of higher source energy, from your passion, from your purpose, from your feeling connected to your mission and your why and what's important to you, that only gives you more fuel for your inner fire to keep going. And inevitably, if we rinse and repeat this cycle, the results, I do feel, are inevitable. That if we keep going, then we will accomplish the outcomes that we set out for, that we intend for, that we wish for. Now, here's the thing. Even if we never, ever reached those goals or got the results we think we want, if we're coming from a place of interconnection, sense of self, uh, confidence and courage, patience, compassion, and a place of where our internal cup is full, then ultimately there's a sense of peace and relief and fun. There's freedom, a sense of what I like to call self-freedom, self-sovereignty. We're coming from that place, a place of curiosity and a place of play and adventure and excitement, enthusiasm, exuberance, joy, gratitude. If we're coming from that place, how could we ever lose? How can we ever lose if we feel that inside, regardless of whether said result is tangible or comes to fruition? I'm saying most of the time it will. And then at that time, you still got to be realistic and then not get triggered into still not enough. That's the whole point, is that it is true. It's so cliche, but it's about it's not about the destination. It's about being present in the journey as it unfolds in every moment, is to stay present in every moment. And that is another topic I'm going to follow up on, but it's the power of now, of being right in the moment, enjoying life just as it is, instead of trying so hard, thinking whatever we do and we create in the material world is going to create the happiness. You see, that's a faulty foundation. So we're just saying sitting still and being able to really acknowledge ourselves, pat ourselves on the back for who we are, for all of our inner higher self qualities of our character, our personality, our beingness, and coming from a place of high energy, patience, compassion, love, and then doing from there. It just even feels good as I'm saying it. And you can never lose. You can never lose, because at the end of the day, as human beings, the ultimate guaranteed destination is death. And taking that inner peace with us. The thing is, I believe we can take the inner peace, all the inner feelings with us. We cannot take the material with us when we die, when we cross over. And so I do believe that if we have that internal state, we have that for eternity. And that's why I say we can never lose. Now that's deep, but we can never lose coming from a full cup. How's that even possible? But we are persistently and consistently losing if we're trying to live our lives and have a sense of self from an empty cup. It's impossible. So, thank you for listening. Here's to the power of self-evolution for you in your life, and understanding the big takeaways of stopping to go, oh my gosh, I think I was in silent burnout, but now I'm in loud burnout and it's all okay. Here is my chance to dig deeper into self, to learn more, to see more that's ultimately going to help me and give me more energy, more life source energy, more inspiration, motivation, more ambition and drive from a healthier place, from a peaceful place, from a powerful, self-loving, self-worthy place. Keep filling that cup up over and over and create that cycle, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And then that will help to help achieve, accomplish your greatest dreams and desires with the least amount of stress and worry and angst and anxiety, the most amount of peace, tranquility, calmness, um, and creating that cycle over and over. Thank you, Karen Lovely here, for the power of self evolution.